Welcome to Hear Her Story, a podcast created and produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association, also known as WiM. My name is Allison Graylis, and I am not only the founder of WiM and the WiM Education Foundation, but also your host, which means I get the great opportunity to speak to incredible women from across the manufacturing industry about their careers, motivations, and their personal passions. Thank you for joining us for our first ever episode of Hear Her Story, where I'm thrilled to sit down with Misti Rice. Misti is the Executive Director of Government Affairs at Magna International Inc. and our 2021 Chair of the Women in Manufacturing Association Board of Directors. Hear and listen how she navigated a career in government affairs throughout changing political climates and her advice for learning from a less than perfect manager. Hear Misti's story coming up in just a moment. Welcome to Hear Her Story podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined today by a special guest, Misti Rice, Executive Director of Government Affairs with Magna. Welcome, Misti.
Thank you for having me, Allison.
We are so thrilled to have you as our guest today and have a conversation with a longtime member of the Women in Manufacturing Association, as well as our Women in Manufacturing Association 2021 chairperson. So again, thrilled to have this conversation with you, Misti, and to chat a little bit about your story in manufacturing, and for you as well to maybe share some lessons learned along the way as you've risen in your career and accomplished great things, to hopefully share with our listeners some words of advice.
Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So in looking at your resume and your expertise and all the experiences you've had, you have such an impressive resume and roster of things you've accomplished. And one of the things that most intrigued me was your work and your experience in the area of politics. And so wanted to get some insight from you as to, how did you first get interested in politics? How did you first jump into kind of working in the public service and government affairs area? And how have you woven that interest in politics into your current position and past positions?
It's a great question. And I usually start by telling folks that I started college when I was 16 years old. So I graduated, was young whenever I started college started school, and then I graduated a year early. And so I throughout that, so whenever I started working in campaigns while I was in college. And so that started my interest in it. And there are a multitude of ways that you become a lobbyist, quite frankly. You either are elected, and then once you leave office, you become a lobbyist, or you're somebody like me who's worked on campaigns and work your way up through the ranks, and then eventually either working for government, and then a lot of people go work for nonprofits and then profit organizations. That's my path. And then the third path really is somebody who starts off with a company and works a really long time at that company, knows them very, very well, and then they have an interest in politics and then move into the government affairs arena. This is usually the three ways to get into it. So that was interest in politics and working in campaigns. And so that's how my great uncle was the lieutenant governor of New Mexico. So my parents weren't very interested in politics, but I just happen to love politics, and I am so grateful because I get to do that for my job every day.
That's really cool. Yeah, I similarly, I started my first introduction to politics in high school when we used to run kind of mock campaigns. So during one of the presidential elections, when Clinton was running for election, we created camps, and we had kind of political advisors and campaigns that we ran in a mock way in high school. And that's how I first got introduced to it. And then in college, I ran judicial campaigns and then was involved in student senate. And it's interesting, at least, and I'd be curious to hear your input, how similar many of those campaign objectives and some of the challenges you have along the campaign trail, how much that is very applicable to present day life, learning how to know your constituents, how to kind of market one's platform, and also how to reach different constituents and groups. And to me, it was a really useful life lesson that I think I still use present day in my current position and role, building alliances, understanding customer objectives and constituents, and how you apply kind of lessons learned when you had past experience in campaigns to present day.
It absolutely applies to present day. You have to, back when probably you and I started, this was very different, but there was still that micro targeting and telephone calls and those kinds of things. It's very different today in terms of Facebook and Twitter and algorithms and all the things that you do. But I think it really does come down to what you just talked about, which is knowing your constituent, knowing your audience, and tailoring your message to them. I sometimes say that while I'm in government affairs or I'm a lobbyist, I'm really about selling ideas, right? I sell the company, I sell uh, us, Magna, as a leader in the industry, in the automotive industry, and in terms of a mobility technology company.
Yeah, I think great lessons learned. And I often have found that probably some of my best experiences have been through some of my non-traditional paid experiences. So those volunteer experiences, doing the phone banking, doing the spaghetti dinners, doing
Absolutely.
the 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 different events such as that. And I think really that's where I grew my love of kind of grassroots organizing, and really which helped me as we started Women in Manufacturing Association to start something from scratch, to find supporters, to find donors, to find kind of that common goal, objective, and mission. And so I always love to find other kind of kindred spirits who have that interest in politics. And to me, it's interesting. I've always loved public service. I don't think I'd ever could run for office because I think the campaigning piece is the tough piece.
I did run for office. It's terrible. And I did it in my 20s, and I would never do it again now. So, and again, I think I, it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun knocking doors, talking to people. Raising money is terrible.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's not,
That's the part that I think is tough. I think, and
yes,
that's the sad part. And it shouldn't be that way, at least. I mean, as you look at people that are really passionate, really knowledgeable, and that want to impact and lead change, that barrier shouldn't be that maybe your comfort level isn't about making an ask for dollars.
certainly.
And it's
It,
pretty
it
sad that it comes down to that.
absolutely. It's really tough. And it's one of the things now that I'm most in my personal life, not associated with Magna, is making sure that I find candidates that align with my views early on and give money early on, to particularly to minority and female candidates. So my wife and I make those decisions together. As you know, I'm married, and so we decided in this last election cycle that the crowd was very full on the Democratic side, and personally, but that's what we decided to do. And so we said that we would pick a candidate and agree, and that we would give to that candidate early on. And so we did that.
That's really important. And I think, I think that the fact, as you said, that the early on giving when a donor is most probably impactful, when a campaign is just getting up and running, that's really excellent.
I tell my wife all the time that it is better to give $100 early on than 1,000 late in the game.
Yeah. So in your role, which again, I think is a very impressive title, Executive Director of Government Affairs, what does a day look like for you? Is it dealing with legislators? Is it corporate relations, communications, the whole full gamut? Kind of what does a day look like for you?
And in my role, I joke around that working in Magna is like working in a pinball machine, because I can go from 1 minute working on international trade issues, very large macro issues, and working with the CEO of Magna, and how that was particularly when we were going through the renegotiation of NAFTA, to the next minute working on an issue that is very localized, and getting calls from our plant managers saying, look, I have my sewage system is backing up, which is causing production problems because people are leaving. They leave. They can't go to the bathroom, and they don't want to deal with it, so they're just leaving for the day. Can you help me out with this? So that is quite the range of issues, and not the macro issues are not more important than the localized sewer issues, because they impact our ability to meet our customers' demand. And actually, the localized issues that impact very quickly can sometimes be much more important. Uh, Working on certificate of occupancy and those kinds of things, working with planning commissions, those are all things that that we work on, that my team is very, very intricately involved in. So it's a day. There is no particular day in the life, but I will tell you right now, my team is consumed with COVID, and we're working and making sure that our frontline employees who've gone to work every day for the last 14, 15 months, um, and putting their own health and family's health at risk by making sure that we survive as a company, and manufacturing across the nation has been able to survive, making sure that they get their vaccinations as soon as possible.
So how has the pandemic impacted the work of you and your team over the past, year plus? I'm sure it's changed, as you said, some of your key priorities right now are vaccinations, keeping employees safe. How has it changed how and what your team is working on?
Early on, the very first week that I believe that the most of the United States went into lockdown, um, we're a global company. We operate on 5 continents in 27 countries. And of course, it was already having an impact on our operations in Asia and Europe. And I looked at my team and I said, we need to start to track this. We need to start what governments are doing around the world. And that's what we did. So we started covering any kind of government actions, whether it was school closings, legislation, and events, right? Those, we sort of bucketed those things into 3 areas, and started putting out a document that at the very beginning we put it out twice a day because things were changing so often. We're now sending it out every 2 weeks, but it grew from a 5-page document to now I believe it's a 63-page document that covers all of the government actions in the 27 countries that we operate. So that's what we did early on. Early on, we were very involved in being the liaison between our company and governments, again, in the procurement of PPE. And Magna is just a great company, and I was so honored and happy to work here, because one of the things that we're able to do, because of our size and our scope, was that there were so many small manufacturing companies around the country, around the world, that wanted to help and wanted to donate, but they were overwhelming governments, because it just logistically wasn't possible for, say, for the state of Michigan to issue a purchase order, you, you know, 100 different purchase orders to small to mid-size to be able to purchase the PPE that they had available. So Magna stepped in and became an aggregator for them. So everybody would send everything to Magna. We would issue the purchase orders at, across we made no profit. It was just across the board and aggregated it all. And then the state of Michigan and other states as well would just issue one purchase order to Magna. So we were able to pull it all together and ship it off to the state in one bundle. A couple of, of course, other things that we did donations and converted some of our exteriors facilities into making shields and that type of thing. And then also set up clean rooms to start to make surgical masks as well. But Magna's, again, just a fantastic company, and the culture here is wonderful. But I believe that manufacturers, I think if you talk to any of your members, they all, they all kicked in. It was a worldwide effort. So
Yeah, it's amazing to hear the stories of your company and others that had to quickly change gears and figure out, okay, number one, first priority, how to keep people safe? How do you keep the doors open? How do you keep people employed? And how do you protect? And then as you we're talking to how do you contribute to this overall effort to keep the country safe and to come up with solutions for others. So I think, Magna did an outstanding job. I'm sure you did not have easy days. I'm sure it was a lot of learning on the job of all these new things. And that's what I think was so interesting. And I think as you spoke to that, I think manufacturers were some of the most innovative responders as to how to help. And I think just given the agility of companies that are in our sector, as well as the fact that for manufacturers, no day has ever been the same or isn't usually the same, I think really helps this industry be very poised to help.
Absolutely. And I again, manufacturers across the country, across the world stepped in and stepped up. So it was a great thing to witness internally and just play a small part. Most of my job is really touting the successes of our groups and divisions, which is our manufacturing plants. I really get to highlight what they do, right? It's not what I've done, it's what they've done, and I get to talk about it. So it's exciting. And
It's really cool.
it's a great way to spend the day, right? Talking about what, the great things that your company is doing.
And I think very similarly, again, I think our roles are very similar in different ways, but I think one similarity is that, that's why I think I love my job so much, getting to lead a manufacturing organization that celebrates women, because it's not about my accomplishment or necessarily our association's accomplishment, but rather celebrating all of the accomplishments of our members, our companies, our individuals that are connected to us, and sharing that with the world so that it ideally inspires others or helps other companies and individuals. And to me, it's a very rewarding job. And so that each day when I go to bed and start the day anew, I think, gosh, hopefully we touched a few people, hopefully we helped a few people and helped them advance their companies and themselves. So
Absolutely. And Women in Manufacturing has done a fantastic job. Our involvement over these last years has grown, and our relationships continue to deepen, and seeing more corporate companies become corporate members has been wonderful. It's been fantastic. So
are you feeling inspired by our guest's manufacturing journey? Elevate your own path to success by enrolling in an education program produced by the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation. The WiM creates opportunities for you to collaborate, network, learn, and grow through our programs, which are built for individuals from all areas of manufacturing, from production floor leaders to the C-suite. Graduates gain actionable insights and competencies needed to grow in the manufacturing space. For more information on the educational programs delivered through the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation, please visit our website at www.wimef.org. Well, one of the cool things I think that you have talked about in your year as chairperson is really to help the organization further our efforts to make connections. And I think you yourself are a very successful connector. And you make introductions, you realize the power of groups, as you even just said, with Magna kind of aggregating with other manufacturers. I think likewise, our organization aims to try to not recreate the wheel and to find partner organizations that can work alongside us and with us to accomplish great things for women in this industry. So as your chairman kind of role for this next year, how do you see kind of helping to make connections for the association, or where do you see some of these opportunities lie for the organization?
I think one of the great things about my role is that we are members of a large swath of organizations, and I think the programming and the partnerships brings some synergy to that. So it's been very easy for me to reach out to some of our manufacturing partners in the states that we operate in, and make those introductions because we offer such great programming for women that's targeted not just for women, but primarily. And this is an area that's new, and a lot of the state manufacturing associations that we're members of, or some of the state chambers, it's an area that they're just starting. So there's some synergy there. And I've enjoyed making those connections and then getting out of the way and letting you take over. And I have to say that all of the feedback that I've received has been 100% positive. There's a lot, because it's not competitive. It's about partnering and bringing value. They have some infrastructure, you have programming, so there's not a competitiveness. It's working together, and so I want to continue to see that grow and continue to see our corporate membership grow. I believe, because once individual memberships are fantastic. That is wonderful. We want to continue to do that, but as you bring a corporation on board, the membership, you just reach a larger population of people.
Definitely. And as you look at kind of companies, I think one of the unique things that you did that more and more companies are doing is creating a women's network. So many organizations have had affinity groups, have had employee resource groups or ERGs. And I know that's something that you helped spirit at Magna, was to create an internal women's network where you could share resources and support, and where you could make connections. And some of your employees have shared some of the great benefit of being able to connect to other women at Magna. How is that something that you started? Is it something that you looked at other companies and they had success with it, or what were kind of the steps that you used and
So
the tactics to get started?
I will say most of my involvement was very informal. Our HR department obviously took the lead, and our communications department took the lead. So my involvement was just encouraging women to participate, and starting very informal lists and email lists and those kinds of things. So as it became more formalized and the employee resources groups took off, I just took that informal infrastructure that I had put in place and passed it along to them. So, and I think it's been very, very successful. One of the things that I started about a year and a half ago, I was at, obviously prior to COVID, we were at a women's leadership training internally, and I thought, we should start an online book club. So I did. So I just started through Goodreads, and it's a closed, you have to have a Magna address to get into it. It's not for, and I called it women at Magna, but certainly we opened it to everybody. So I make recommendations online, and it's an online book club. So those are the kinds of things that I do. But
I think that's just as important as like a formal gesture. And I think that's where I think, you leveraging your authority at Magna and your influence, and helping to just encourage and create some opportunities for people to connect, I think is really cool. And I mean, whether it be a book club or, again, being a partner with human resources as something got started, that is really excellent.
It is really important to us, because we take the lead on most of our memberships throughout, whether they be national or state organizations. And there are so many opportunities that come from WiM, come from our other organizations, and making sure that they don't just end up in my department, but that we push them out to the divisions in the states around the Southern Women's Conference. We make sure that goes to all of the HR managers and the general managers down there, to invite their frontline employees to those events. So that's the kind of thing that we like to make sure that we do.
So as you look at women, younger women in particular, or someone who's more early career at Magna, and you look for opportunities to maybe lend advice or to mentor those individuals, what are the things that you're seeing as the biggest challenges for those individuals that are kind of new career? And then as well, have there been any lessons learned as you've maybe had some mentoring relationships, whether they be formal or informal, that have helped you in your career and your understanding over the past few years?
So one of the things I would share with my younger self, is to be open to learning from every situation. The fact is, I think that we all learn just as much from leaders who are less than perfect. And throughout my career, I've really had some fantastic mentors and leaders, But really early on in my career, I worked with some really terrible managers. So we all have that experience of a bad boss, and you can experience a great deal of growth when you have a terrible manager. And it's not easy and it's not pleasant, but I would encourage the lessons learned be an asset to you as you go throughout your career. Today, I'm really grateful for those experiences because dealing with bad boss really presented me with the opportunity to know exactly the kind of leader that I don't want to be. I don't want to emulate these types of behaviors. So that would be one thing that I had learned early on, and I would tell my younger self and tell you it's not fun while you're going through it though, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And it is funny. We take often it's those worse or those not so great hot bosses that stick with us, some of their behaviors. And I do often have that kind of fright factor when I'm behaving as a leader sometimes. And I think, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a micromanager like my ex-boss that I had here, or I don't want to be speaking more than I'm listening in meetings. And just some of those things that you've seen, those poor traits that you've seen, perhaps, as you said, in some of those past bosses. It's definitely a way to learn and to improve how we lead and mentor next generations of individuals, for sure. And I think feedback's really important too. I don't know about you, but I think feedback from employees is really useful to help us improve how we are as leaders and how we communicate and how we lead teams. It's really important.
I think one of my mottos in my career as a supervisor is to surround myself with people that are smarter than myself. So surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And it's a really common piece of career advice, but it's a really valuable one. If you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, people who are smarter than you and your team can make you smarter, and they make you better, and they spark interest and introduce you to new ideas and new concepts. And if they're truly smart, they know the value of kindness and generosity, and they're likely to throw you some of that your way. So, which you should do in return, because if you're smart, you know that makes the world a little bit better place, and that's really important to me. So, I really do try to surround, and I have a fantastic team. They all are smarter than me, and every day, I they really do. And some of them, they think of things differently, and I like that, right? Because I've been doing this a really long time, and the last 4 years have been very challenging for those of us who have been in government affairs for a really long time, and how to break through um, has been a little bit challenging these last 4 years. So it's been interesting. And
Yeah, I
and
think
and my team's younger, and so this is what they were used to. So I kept at the beginning, if I would say, well, this is sort of unprecedented, and I'm really not sure how to deal with this. So they were helpful to me.
that's really neat. Yeah, my team is all younger than me as well. And I think the amount of lessons learned, as she said, are probably equal, if not surpass, what I probably impart to them as a leader of the organization. And I think, as you said, these last 4 or 5 years have been so very unique that I don't think our organization would have been able to thrive and to survive if there weren't those types of innovative thinkers who come from a different generation, who have a diverse amount of experiences that are different than mine. And I
Mm.
think as well, to help with that kind of we've been there, done that mentality, that sometimes, having now worked in trade association work for 20
Yes.
years, plus you get into this rut of, well, this is how we've always done it in trade associations. It's this model and this is what works. And to have those disruptive ideas has been critical for us to stay kind of ahead of the trend with many of these things that could have very negatively impacted us over this past year with the pandemic.
Absolutely. And the technology is just, it moves so fast. I'm just trying to keep up. So I think one of the things too that particularly the last few years, this last year, and especially right now when people are having pandemic fatigue, everybody's tired, right? And just reminding everybody to be respectful and kind to one another. My mom taught me really early my mom, her entire career was an administrative assistant. My mom's one of the smartest people that I know. And from my experience with my mom, I learned very early on to treat everybody with respect, from the front desk attendant, administrative assistants to interns to our CEO. And let's be honest, really, administrative assistants, they keep everything running. They run the train. But they're also the ultimate gatekeeper. So, you know, it, it they can make your life really very difficult or very easy. But again, it's just really important to me and for my team to understand that to be respectful and kind to other people and make the world just a little bit better place. And I think we could all use that right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that was something that I think we've all learned more now than ever that it's so important just to be respectful, kind, loving, patient. I mean, I think now more than ever, it's been so humanizing to know that we all have lives that surround that work person that you're on a conference call with, or that teammate that maybe you only saw in a work setting. And now, because work is often home and the two are
Yes.
blended, it's humanized all of us. And I think for the better, for us to realize that we are more than just an employee. We are often a mom, a caregiver, lots of different things. And all of those things impact who maybe people once saw just coming to work, but now they're seeing it all day long. And I think it's been so important as well, just to realize, to understand where people are coming from, and to not take for granted, any of the things that we're given, and to again lend support, help for one another, and to be respectful and kind, I think is so important. Your mom sounds like a great woman.
Yes, she is. She's fantastic. She's just wonderful, and I think that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Magna too is because they we have we believe and live our employee charter, which is our employees are our greatest assets. So, um, being kind is just part of that. At Magna, they have multi-generational employees, right? Second and third generations. So I think that says a lot about the company and how they operate, that generations of families work here. So
You must be doing something right, as she said, if you're keeping generations of families there and coming, encouraging others to join the company organization. That's really impressive for sure. Are you feeling inspired by our guest manufacturing journey? Elevate your own path to success by enrolling in an education program produced by the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation. The WIM creates opportunities for you to collaborate, network, learn, and grow through our programs, which are built for individuals from all areas of manufacturing, from production floor leaders to the C-suite. Graduates gain actionable insights and competencies needed to grow in the manufacturing space. For more information on educational programs delivered through the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation, please visit our website at www.wimef.org. Are you feeling inspired by our guest manufacturing journey? Elevate your own path to success by enrolling in an education program produced by the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation. The WIM creates opportunities for you to collaborate, network, learn, and grow through our programs, which are built for individuals from all areas of manufacturing, from production floor leaders to the C-suite. Graduates gain actionable insights and competencies needed to grow in the manufacturing space. For more information on educational programs delivered through the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation, please visit our website at www.wimef.org. We talked a little bit about this year of pandemic, and I think I shared at the start of our conversation, both of us, have similar paths as it relates to kind of travel and demands, and this year being unique that, we both have been grounded, not traveling, not going places, which has definitely impacted probably work life, integration, family, all that kind of stuff. So how has it been this past year kind of working from home, and what do you think it's going to be like as we start going back to airports and traveling again? Are there lessons learned from this downtime that, are you going to travel less? Do you think you're going to be more selective and kind of hitting the road and going places? after having this year being at home?
There, by far the upside to the pandemic has been no travel, right? And so I have, as I shared with you, I have a wife, but we have 4 small uh, children that we adopted. They're not so young anymore, but now they're 9, 7, and 2 6-year-olds. So um, I have enjoyed very much. While it feels like I really have worked a lot from home, um, but I've been home, so I've had the opportunity to read to them every night, have dinner most nights, and I think I shared with you. I'm gonna in a personal way. I read Shonda Rhimes' book last year, A Year of Yes, and one of the things that was the most impactful of that book, and if you haven't read her book, I highly encourage you to do so and watch her 20-minute TED talk. But is saying yes to playing and having fun, right? Whenever the opportunity arises, just say yes. So for me, because I wasn't traveling and working so much, I really, particularly at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were working 14, 15, 16 hours a day. But her words just kind of reminded me that it's yes to fun is profound. And as a parent, somehow it's so much easier just to say yes to everything rather than just stopping and being in the moment with our children. And even when you don't have children, just stopping and saying, yes, it's okay for me to have fun right now. And whatever fun means to you, whether it's taking a break, watching a 30-minute television show, or stepping out and enjoying the weather and taking a walk. And that is one of the things that I've really tried to instill with my team is that they need to stop. They need to stop whatever they're doing. They need to take a lunch break. They need to get up from their computers. They need to walk around and just say yes to having a little fun whenever they can. So, and for me this year, I think I shared with you as part of that is I'm very slow, but I'm trying. I said yes to my 7-year-old, and we're training for a 5K. Now, whether or not we actually run the 5K, I don't know, but we're training for it, and it's helping me get up, break away from my computer, and he's ready and he goes and runs. And we bought the dual sharing earbuds, so we each have our earbuds and my iPhone, and we have an Adrian and Mama Misty playlist for our 5K. So that's what I've done this year.
I
So
love that. That is so healthy that you're imparting that in your team. And I think I've tried to successfully do that as well with our group, but it is so easy now that most people's offices are their homes to just keep working, to just keep working through lunch, working beyond what are humane hours into the wee hours of the evening. And that's not healthy and it's not sustainable. And I think it's great that you're encouraging your team, get out for a half hour, take some personal time, enjoy the weather, enjoy a book, enjoy, whatever that is. I think is really important because, I worry about retention rates, and I worry about, we've seen what the impact is of COVID on women in the workplace. I mean, a record number of women have left the workplace because they couldn't successfully balance all of this, that it was, not humane for them. And maybe their companies didn't have the flexibility that they needed. But, I think it's really important. And I love that idea. I've not heard her TED talk or read her book, so I'm gonna have to check out Chandra Rhimes. I
oh,
think this,
it's fantastic. You'll love it. So yes, and one of the things too that last year we I think they were zoomed out, but about every 3 months we were having Zoom happy hours. So I am the first one. I bought all of the alcohol, their favorite alcohol, so or favorite drinks. So some of them some of them like coffee, others drank wine, margarita, or whatever. So I have a team of 10, and so you should have seen my dining room table. So I had it all stacked out, all their mixers and all the different alcohol, and I had to take it to the post office because it's actually kind of hard to ship alcohol. So I put it all in a box and sent it all to all of them. So the first time that we did our happy hour. So I did everything from wine to margarita, I believe. So, and Bloody Marys to orange juice. I sent somebody orange juice because she didn't drink alcohol, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
I had my iced tea there. So yeah. So we did that about every 3 months. So we'd have a happy hour, uh Zoom happy hour, and then we played online trivia.
That is
For
really
about,
fun.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I'm trying to figure out new things to do with them. So after about 3 or 4 of those, I think they'd had enough with the trivia, online trivia. So I'm trying to
And
come up
when
with
do you
something
think you'll
else.
get to see your team in person? Do you have any plans for your team to do some in-person meetings in the future?
I really I believe so. I'm housed here in Michigan, and we're seeing really high infection rates right now. So um, I think the loosening and return to work is really going to be driven in most states by infection rates, but also vaccination rates. So once we see infection rates decline, vaccination rates go up, then we can see some kind of return to work.
Now, which I
So,
think,
yeah,
yeah,
so and so I'm not a betting person. I'm not sure when that's going to be, right?
yeah,
So I think we're
it's
in our
really,
third wave in Michigan right now. So
yeah. It's tough to predict, as you said, there's so many factors. And I know, we have a small team at WiM of 7 staff members, and we've just started doing weekly in-person meetings at a shared workspace location. And, just trying to get people connected in a safe way. And for us to be able to share information, to share reports live again in a distance and safe setting. But it's just difficult. We onboarded 2 new employees this year, actually now 3 employees during a pandemic. And it's hard if you're trying to build camaraderie and trust, which is critical. And if you don't know your other teammates that well, aside from their faces on Zoom,
right.
it can make it difficult.
Yes, I agree, which is one of the reasons we did the Zoom happy hours. And early on, I was not a big proponent of cameras. So, but in government affairs, we have a very extrovert. Yet a lot of my team is are extroverts, so we went to all cameras all the time, so they're always on.
Yeah, and it's now weird, isn't it strange? I mean, a year plus ago, I never would have imagined seeing half the people I have dialogues with. And now it's awkward if someone doesn't share their camera, and people will they'll make apologies at the start of a meeting, hey, I had a rough morning, or I just worked out, but that's rare. I mean, now the majority of people are sharing their cameras, which is nice
It is nice. So
for
I
sure.
would, I'm probably left to my own devices. I would probably still have my camera off, but I could tell, I can really tell a difference with my team. So, and that's part of, in a professional way, I set a goal for myself to make sure that I'm doing those regular check-ins with my managers to make sure that they're doing well. We're on track for all of our goals and all those things, but just making sure that they're doing okay working remotely and not losing touch as a team, because it's, as you said, it's just easy to do. And we're in year 2 of this, right? So, and with hopefully an end in sight with the vaccination rates going up, but I want to make sure that they're doing all right.
Well, it's been an interesting year. I'm excited for us to have a year together working as chair and as president to lead our association to greatness, I hope, and to continued growth. We as an organization had our largest year ever and most successful year during a pandemic, which was exciting. But also, I think it's one of those things where there's so much more that we have left to do. There are so many new programs and resources needed. We're excited to work with companies, and our individual members to figure out what's next and what are those next big projects.
Well, and I think that's just your growth that you just described is a testament to the really solid programming that you provided this last year that was instrumental in attracting new individual and corporate members. And so it's, I think, something for you and your team to be very proud of. That all the it was from my perspective, I can tell you, the program that you provided for our Magnus employees was just fantastic. And you can, I can definitely tell the difference in those organizations that were able to pivot and those that were not. So I would definitely rate you guys very, very high in terms of the value that you provided during this, which was a transformative year, right? Your programming was fantastic. It was just awesome the way your team was able to pivot from live events to online events, and quite frankly, the quality of those events was phenomenal. And it opened up the opportunity for more women to be able to participate, right? So I think that's probably why you saw such exponential growth.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting to reach people we never would have potentially reached. And I think thankfully, again, given the pandemic, we hopped to having this virtual option by necessity, but I think it would have happened eventually, but I'm happy it happened sooner than later so that we could reach all these people that maybe didn't have the budgets to travel live to our conferences or were in very remote areas and would not have been able to be part of a chapter or one of our national events. So it was exciting. And to now have, 11 countries connected to WiM through members who are part of US corporate member companies is exciting. And I think the future is bright, and I'm sure there's I know there's lots more that we need to accomplish over the next few years. And with volunteer leaders like you, we'll definitely be able to do that.
I'm looking forward to it.
So a few more just rapid fire questions. So one, I know you're an avid reader and we talk often about books. And I think you've shared that you've one of the largest digital digests of books on demand and audiobooks. So what is your favorite book of all time? And what is one current book that you're reading that you might recommend to others?
So right now, my favorite series of all time is Harry Potter. I'm a huge J.K. Rowling's fan and love her books. Two of my favorite authors right now is Ruth Ware. She writes sort of strong women characters that are mysteries. And Ken Follett is also one of my favorite authors who writes historical fiction. And then I'm also reading Jenny Lawson's Broken in a really good way. She's hilarious. She's a fantastic author. I heard previous two books, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the other one, but she's really funny. Really, really funny. I did an online, I never would have normally done this, but I did an online book tour. So I've never gone to a book signing, but I did an online book tour where all of the proceeds went to charity. I did it with Jenny Lawson and Judy Blume, who, if you're,
I love Judy Blume.
that's exactly what I did it for. I said, Judy Blume and Jenny Lawson, how can you get better than that? And so it was hilarious. I did that last week. So, yes, so I'm the one social media that I participate in. I know you've teased me a little bit. I don't do LinkedIn. I don't do a lot of those things, but I am on Twitter. And so she's been on Twitter for a really long time. And I had not gotten my hard copy of my book yet. And I wanted to start it. I wanted to start reading it before I did the virtual tour. And so she follows me on Twitter. And so I don't normally do this, but I said, I hate to invade your direct messages, but where's my book? As if you're sitting and mailing this out yourself, but when do you think you're going to get it? And so I said, well, maybe I'll just go ahead and download the audiobook. And again, in all things in my life, my wife said, just, I know you don't have the book yet, but all of the proceeds went to charity. So what does it matter? Just download the audiobook and you'll have both or whatever. So she told me to do that. And then I downloaded it, and for whatever reason, the purchase on my iTunes locked up my credit card. So in my direct message to her, sort of an ongoing thing. So when do you think I'm going to get my book? Well, never mind. My wife talked me into getting my audiobook. Okay, I promise you this is my last direct message to you, but the purchase of your audiobook locked up my credit card. And so she sent me back a direct message that said, I'm such a troublemaker. So anyway, she really is hilarious.
Hysterical.
Yeah. So,
But at least you got the book eventually, right?
no, I still haven't got.
You haven't.
I'm sure I'll get my signed copy sometime, but but right now I'm listening to the audiobook. I love audiobooks. So
I love audiobooks. I can't imagine life without them. And also I can't imagine life without podcasts as well. It makes life bearable when I'm trying to walk or work out. It's just nice to have entertainment like that.
I have to tell you, so this is my third podcast, and I've only listened to one podcast and not even very much of it, just one podcast. And it's Rachel Maddow's Bagman about Sparrow Agnew. So it's hilarious to me that I didn't even really understand the concept of podcasts until about 3 weeks ago, whenever I started getting asked to do them.
Yeah, I knew about them a long time ago, and I love comedy. So that's where I first started. I listened to
Okay.
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is one of my favorites. And then I love Smart List that has Will Arnett and Jason Bateman. And, I like kind of just humor and entertainment. I always feel like life is rough enough. Why do I want to listen to things that are depressing or upsetting? And I kind of follow that same suit with what I watch for entertainment when it relates to TV and movies. Some of my team members love serial crime and killers and watching things about that. And to me, that's not light. I can't watch that and then go to bed for the evening. So I like light, and there's so many options, and there's so many women's podcasts that are excellent that are out there. So we're excited to kind of enter this area and this media. And I'm so excited that you were a guest with us today.
Well, thank you for having me again. This has been a lot of fun. So I appreciate your time and your interest and I appreciate WiM. It's a great organization.
Well, thank you, Misty. Thanks for being a guest on today's podcast. And we'll, of course, be staying in touch and working together this year. So thanks for sharing your story on Hear Her Story, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to Hear Her Story, a podcast produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. Be sure to share, review, and subscribe to Hear Her Story on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen.